How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
My fellow Americans, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number, 877-973-7425 on this open line Friday. Get your turkeys out of the freezer and put them in the fridge today. I don't care what size it is unless it's tiny. You need to start thawing your turkey, but do it in the fridge, not on the counter, please. Not in a bucket of water. Do it in the fridge. Thaw your turkey. If you text the word data to 33777, that'll send you a link to my daily email where this morning I put up the recipes. There's a link you can go to and get all the recipes that you need for the holidays. Do your grocery shopping this weekend. I went grocery shopping last night at 8:30 p.m. There was no one in the grocery store. It was glorious. I got everything I needed other than there was a run on buttermilk, but that's okay. We'll be back. Now, we've got to begin, and I'm going to begin actually with my buddy Chip Roy in the United States House of Representatives talking about the Department of Education. I want you to listen to the congressman who will soon be, I hope, the Attorney General for the state of Texas. He's running for Attorney General in Texas. This is Chip.
Education. Give it back to the states. Get out of the way. Empower states and parents. Expand choice. Expand those options, but don't fund bureaucrats. The president's right to dismantle the Department of Education. It was started in 1979. We put a man on the moon in 1969. Why do we need the Department of Education? We don't.
We don't. Amen and amen. And we have some data. And I got to tell you, they're a little bit gloomy about it because they can't blame Trump. This is New York Magazine. Student achievement has fallen off a cliff, and neither Trump nor the pandemic is to blame. You almost expect them to end with, oh, darn. Dang it, we can't blame Trump for the collapse in student education. It's actually, we've got more and more data out there, and you know what is the most galling thing to these people? Do you have any idea this is actually, really makes them mad? Progressives are upset because education, particularly literacy, is better in the South now than in progressive states. That's right. Did you know this? Have you heard this? I bet you have it on major media outlets. If you listen to me, you've known for a while the Mississippi success story. Mississippi now has one of the highest literacy rates in the country for high school graduates, and not on the rig test, but on the standardized tests. If you get to third grade in Mississippi and you can't reach basic third grade literacy rates, you're not allowed to progress to fourth grade until you do. They're holding kids back in Mississippi until they can read. The problem now is math. Math is actually becoming a problem, and it is a problem across the United States. And I've got some thoughts, but first, let me read you this from New York Magazine. Academic researchers have only just begun to examine the Southern surge. Some credit concerted teacher training, coaching efforts, back to basics philosophy that makes use of old-fashioned teaching tools like math flashcards. Some point to the science of reading, a phonics-based curriculum that Mississippi was early to embrace and that is now being implemented all over the country, including in New York City, which just announced a jump in reading test scores. Another thing that the conservative southern states tend to share is a continued commitment to test-based accountability measures, which their teachers have had to swallow because they have weaker unions. In Mississippi, children are also held accountable. Third graders who fail to show reading proficiency are held back by law, which may help to explain why its fourth graders test so well. There's a lot on literacy, but not a lot on math. I have to tell you, I think Common Core has a lot to do with the bad math scores because it detached parents from being able to help their children. If you don't understand what Common Core math is new math. In fact, they make old school math that you and I did in elementary and high school. They make it pejorative. They call it grandma math. And they tell the kids not to do grandma math. And they've complicated math. When I was in third grade, I had Helen Bruskus. Helen Bruskus was this fiery Greek teacher. She is the woman who taught me the love of writing and reading. She forced us every day we had to write. We had to write not sentences, we had to write paragraphs. And every day there was a topic and we had to write on the topic. And she taught us math. And the way we learned multiplication tables, I mentioned this on the radio yesterday, we sat around an old school record player. And she had a record for each of the numbers 2 through 9. 2 times 2 is 2, da-da. 2 times 3 is 6, da-da. 2 times 4 is 8, da-da. 2 times 5 is 10, da-da. 2 times 6 is 12. You had to do it all the way up. And then you did the threes. 3 times 1 is 3, da-da. 3 times 2 is 6, da-da. 3 times 3 is 9, all the way up. And I got held back from recess because I couldn't memorize. I still have troubles with the 8s and the 9s. It took me forever to try to memorize them. But you had to memorize them. Before you were allowed to do division, you had to memorize them. And everybody had to be together. And there was a certain time period you had to memorize this stuff for when you got to division. So when you got to 2 divided by 4 or 4 divided by 2, you know that is 2 because 2 times 2 is 4. And you got to be able to figure it out. You had to memorize it. And Common Core shifts the way memorization for mathematics skills works. And by the way, they've now rebranded Common Core math. In some schools, they call it Singapore math because you see the kids in Singapore are smart. It's a variation of Common Core. And there are a number of schools that use it, and it's called Singapore math. And the idea, the academics, some of whom will big defenders, we'll get defenders of Singapore and Common Core math on this program. We've got to learn this new way. And some kids learn different. We have to teach. Essentially, they're teaching you every variety of way to do a math problem. And by the way, one of the things that's happened, is kids are having a harder time doing word problems. Since we got rid of basic math and we moved to Common Core math, there's been a decline in comprehension of word-based math problems, which Common Core was actually supposed to solve but made it worse. And so now they call it Singapore math because, those kids in Singapore, they sure are smart. Let's do it the way they do it. And it's not working. Scores have gotten worse. Academia they think they got to reinvent the wheel every time. And guess what? In Mississippi and Louisiana and Tennessee, Alabama, the reason literacy scores are going up so high is because they've abandoned reinventing the wheel and they went back to what worked at first. The way we taught literacy in the early 1900s was phonics based. The word sounds. Put the word sounds together, you'll learn the word, as opposed to the whole word and sentence structure reading that took off in the 50s, 60s, and 70s and collapsed literacy rates in the country. Phonics actually does work. And there are teachers who are very adamant that phonics is a terrible way to learn, that you should use the sight word method, and those people should frankly be driven out of education. Because the data shows it doesn't work as well as phonics, but they're dogmatic. It's like the people who embrace Common Core and then had to rebrand it Singapore math. And a lot of schools, they got rid of calling it Common Core and they decided to do common proficiency and nonsensical new labels because parents realize Common Core sucks. And it's dragged down education across the country. And what it has done, one of the primary motivations of Common Core was so that you could be a good worker bee for the Fortune 500. And it's not a coincidence that as this has happened, as schools embrace Common Core, which Bill Gates and others helped develop, because they thought a kid in California, if they moved to Georgia, should kind of be on the same page and taught the same way. What's actually happened now is that there's no room in the Fortune 500 for your kids. And your kids have now lost the entrepreneurial ambition and spirit because Common Core was designed to suck up the entrepreneurial spirit. Common Core was designed, in fact, to make your kids stop thinking outside the box and do things certain ways and then detach your kid from you. How many of you parents in Common Core states can help your kid with math? Virtually none. And that's not actually me. That's data-based. There's actually been research on this that parents in Common Core states can't help their kids with math, because the parents don't know how to do it. They haven't been trained in doing it. And we have this collapse in math in the country as the Fortune 500 and the chambers of commerce and the like got together and let's come up with Common Core. They rolled it out across the country. States across the country have embraced it. And now you can't help your child with math. Your child is dependent on who? On who? The state. The teacher. You know, our kids were in a private school that did Common Core math. It was actually our church's school. I think they still do Common Core math. They moved to a different private classical education school, and the Christian classical education school uses old school math. My son is accelerated up to pre-calc. My daughter did AP calculus, ran circles around the kids in the other private school that were doing the Common Core stuff. And by the way, I'm no math whiz. I'm great at geometry and trigonometry. But when he gets into calc and stuff, nope, that was my wife. And she could help the kids. She wasn't able to help our kid in third grade do math. But when our kids moved to an old school math system, she's able to help our kids with math again. The parents were able to involve themselves in their kids' homework. There's a lady online. I want you to read this. This is another part of the problem with education right now. I have a student in an Algebra 2 class who is failing. Her grade is a 12. The student is frequently absent and does not turn in work when they're present. I asked the student why they don't attempt any of the assignments. The student said, I know how this works. They'll put me in credit recovery. I'll finish the whole course in a couple of weeks and can guess my way through everything because it's all multiple choice with unlimited attempts. The teacher in there's chill. He's on his phone. He doesn't care if we're on our phone. The student is going to graduate from high school with a transcript showing passing grades in Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. Does the student understand any of the material? Absolutely not. Course and grade recovery programs should not be an option. And it is, particularly in a lot of blue states and in a lot of urban areas in red states. Credit and grade recovery programs have become the default. And so now you have situations like the University of California, San Diego saying that virtually every child who comes in, because they got rid of testing standards, because they wanted a more diverse student population, and virtually every kid who comes into that school program at the University of California, San Diego now has to go through a remedial math program to catch up because they can't do basic math. States that don't have strong teachers unions have better education outcomes. Think about that. See, the teachers unions are advocates for the teachers, not the students. The students are failing and the teachers unions are like, well, we can't improve them because that would mean more work for the teachers. In southern states where teachers unions are not strong, you've got better education outcomes. In literacy, math scores are actually rising in the South, even as they still have these terrible Common Core programs. Some schools are moving back to traditional math. We want to be competitive in the world. You know, the president the other day, he did it again yesterday. He stepped in it. He defended H-1B visa programs again, claimed H-1B visa programs are part of MAGA. A lot of his supporters were very outraged about what the president said. But to a degree, the president has a point that we don't have a proficiency of training in this country because kids are coming out of high schools and they are failing math, and yet they pass math enough to be able to get by. And so the president, to a degree, is actually right when he says something like this.
To bring people to get those plants opened, we want you to do that, and we want those people to teach our people how to make computer chips and how to make other things. You can't come in, and I'm explaining, you can't come in, open up a massive computer chip factory for billions and billions of dollars like is being done in Arizona and think you're going to hire people off an unemployment line to run it. They're going to have to bring thousands of people with them, and I'm going to welcome those people. Now, my I love my conservative friends. I love MAGA, but this is MAGA. And those people are going to teach our people how to make computer chips. And in a short period of time, our people are going to be doing great. And those people can go home where they probably always want to be, you know?
He's not wrong. But will his supporters embrace this message? We do have to have people to train us, but right now, we got teachers claiming Singapore math isn't Common Core when it actually is, and the results speak for themselves. Our kids are falling further and further behind, and the acceleration of kids falling behind in math came with Common Core when their parents could no longer help them with math scores, and yet the education establishment of this country has doubled down on it, and the results now speak for themselves. Our country is falling further behind. Guys, if you struggle to come up with gifts for family members, I got a suggestion for you, the Cove Pure. I love mine. I wasn't sure I would like it as much as I do, and I really, really, really do. What is a Cove Pure? Well, it's an water filtration system. It's on the countertop. You can get cold water. You can get hot water. It even has a bottle button, so you can get the warm bottle perfect for formula for your baby at night. It's really easy. It's so convenient. I use it all the time in my office. You will love it. It sits on the countertop. It uses reverse osmosis. It gets rid of like pharmaceuticals, fluoride, lead, arsenic. It's the purest water you can get. It tastes fantastic. If you're looking for a great gift for your loved ones or for yourself that they're actually going to use the Cove Pure. I partnered with them. They're giving you a $250 holiday discount with my link, covepure.com/Eric. That's COVEPURE.com/Eric, ERICK. You get $250 off, covepure.com/Eric. The sale is going to end, so take advantage of this $250 holiday discount, covepure.com/Eric. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. It is an open line Friday, 877-973-7425. Thank you again. If you didn't hear yesterday, we raised $265,000 to feed families across the nation for Thanksgiving. That's going to feed over 6,625 families this holiday season, and that was all you guys. Thank you very, very, very much for your help nationwide feeding families. If you text Eric, ERICK, and you click the very first link that goes to my daily email. And this morning's email was my annual recipe list that includes the Thanksgiving gravy. My gravy is very, very easy. Let me just spend one quick moment with you on gravy. If you do a flour-based gravy like I do, you have to use fat. You have to heat fat, preferably butter for flavor. And then you add the flour to the butter. Here's why. The flour will absorb the oil, and then it won't clump up. If you have clumpy gravy, it's because you're putting your non-fat liquid into the flour before the flour has time to absorb the fat. So you got to do the flour into the butter for a minute or two, let it absorb the butter fat, and then you can add in your stock, and you're not going to have lumpy gravy. It's a very easy recipe. You can get them all. Just text Eric, ERICK, to 33777. Click the very first link. Now, let me tell you about Americans for Prosperity. Around the country, they are firing up conservatives to get involved and advance common sense conservative reforms. They've got chapters in every state. I'm on their board of advisors. Here's what they do. They find grassroots activists who want to get involved or just stay informed. They give you all the information about public policy coming to your local government, your state government, Congress. They provide you ways to reach out to your city councilman, your school board member, your state legislator, or your congressman or senator to advocate those policies. And also, they teach you how to relate to your friends who are curious so that they know you're a trusted person with the right information. All you have to do is go to afpvolunteer.com and sign up to become a highly effective activist around the country. afpvolunteer.com. Get involved with American for Prosperity. Advance common sense conservative solutions for families and businesses. afpvolunteer.com. Sign up with them today. Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome across the fruited plain. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Yes, I will be working part of next week. I got a lot of cooking to do as well. But I want you to know that I will be around. And as always, if you text the word Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. Even when I'm around on social media. You should follow me on Instagram anyway. I put a lot of cooking pictures up. I'm going to be smoking the turkeys for the family. I've got sweet potato pies to make, and I've got the gravy. I always make the gravy. You can get those recipes as well, the same ones I'm making. You can get them if you text the word Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. I want to go to Vicky on the phones. Welcome to the show, Vicky. How are you?
I am well. I am calling you about the H-1B comment and conversation the country is having.
Sure.
I agree with what Trump's saying, and I think most of us in this country recognize that when you have a relatively new technology or labor, you need to have people who have experience to teach people. I think what the problem is, because I have this in my life experience, this is not just my opinion. We have a lot of H-1Bs in the technical field, which both my brother-in-law and my husband were laid off because of so many H-1Bs in their industries. And the issue is we have so many H-1Bs here, and our government hasn't governed it properly, having limitations of how many can come in, how long they can be here. And these companies are just really taking advantage of that to raise their profit line, which, that's all about the money. But then I personally experienced hardship because of our government's policy on H-1Bs. And I feel like I represent a lot of people that's the issue with H-1B being here. It's not the new industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, there is such a problem, Vicky, with I really do think H-1B visa program has become the program by which high-tech companies in particular just hire cheaper workers, not more skilled, not more proficient. They're just offloading. I can't tell you the number of Americans I know who lost jobs and found out later who they were replaced with, and it tended to be a worker on an H-1B visa who didn't make as much money and save the company. That's just we've got real visa programs that can bring in highly technical workers. Somebody was telling me I think it's the O program. Now, you should know as well. I tried to do immigration law, and I was an abject failure at a lot of immigration law. There's some of it I could do, but it's a very complex system, which, of course, the complexity breeds corruption as well. In and of itself, there are so many opportunities for us to value American workers. But there are cases too, in fairness, there are cases where the president is right that there are some jobs where we have outsourced all the labor abroad and we've lost the skill sets and we need people to come back here and train. And there is a very specific one I know about. Nuclear reactors. Nuclear reactors. For those of you in Texas, nuclear reactors. For the rest of us, nuclear reactors. There's a nuclear power plant here in Georgia called Plant Vogtle, built by Georgia Power. And it had massive cost overruns. The reason it had massive cost overruns, and to the credit of the state of Georgia and the Public Service Commission here, they pursued the program even with the cost overruns. Our nuclear engineering base had all retired or died. We haven't built a new nuclear power plant in this country in more than a generation. And we lost that skill set. We had to bring people in from abroad on H-1B visas and other visa programs to help reteach American engineers how to build nuclear reactors because we had lost the knowledge. And it's a real problem in some industries, and nuclear is a great example of this. We've got the knowledge back now. And by the way, most of the engineers, including a lot of Japanese engineers, have gone home. Nuclear is a prime example for what the president is talking about, that there are some. Look, I think the president is a little bit tone deaf on how he's been talking about the H-1B visa program. But the nuclear program in this country is a prime example of what he's talking about. And I wish someone would show the president this, because I agree with him on this. And he thinks I think he thinks I disagree with him way more than I do. I got disagreements on tariffs, but on much of what he's doing, I agree. This is one of those examples here. Our nuclear reactor program in this country, the last one we built was generations ago. And so when you wanted to build, there was a South Carolina and a Georgia project. The South Carolina one, Westinghouse went bankrupt. The project collapsed. In Georgia, they stuck with it. We had to import highly technical labor from abroad, a lot of it from Japan and some from Europe, to reteach American engineers how to build nuclear power plants. Those people have gone home now. But they had to come here and reteach us how to build nuclear power plants because it's been so long since we built one. The engineers who had built the old nuclear power plants either retired or died, had Alzheimer's. They were old. But now we've got that technical expertise back. We should be able to deploy it and start building more nuclear power plants. But we could not have done it except by doing exactly what the president is talking about right now, which is occasionally you have to bring in. And it's not a lack of talent. It's a lack of training. And if I could encourage the president to talk about that, Americans are talented. They can get off the unemployment line and they're talented people. But there are some sectors of the economy where you need training for that talent. And if he would talk about it that way, I think people would understand it a little better, because the nuclear power plants are a great example of this, where we've got very talented American engineers. They just needed to be trained on how to build a nuclear power plant because there were no Americans around anymore who really remembered how to do it because it had been so long. But now the talented Americans took the training and can build nuclear power plants. That's exactly what's going on here. And that's why I hope the president refines his message a little more and makes it not about we don't have any talent. It's that we need the training for the talented Americans. And he can use nuclear power as a good example of this. And now look what's happening. We've got nuclear power plant projects cropping up around the country, all because in Georgia Power invested in, with the help of the state, a nuclear power program. They built a nuclear power plant in the state of Georgia, the first one we built in this country in generations. And the nuclear engineers, they're very talented, and now they're trained. And so now they can go out, and all the foreign engineers who came over and helped them on H-1B visas, they've gone home now. It's a great way for us to do it. And in that regard, the president is right. And I think his base that's a little bit defensive on this message. If he talks about it in that way, I think that he will be able to make it, because here's the practical reality. The left in this country, particularly in the energy sector, wiped out our capacity to learn these skill sets. And a lot of Fortune 500 companies also shoved out the talented skill set and shifted them overseas, and we lost the training here at home. We got the talent, we just need the training. You put the training from abroad with the talent at home, we're going to have the most industrious, resourceful base of talented Americans able to keep this country running, and we won't be dependent on the Chinese. We won't be dependent on people from around the world, and I think that's what the president is getting at. I just think he needs to talk about it with some of those examples to make people understand what he actually means. It's not that we don't have talented Americans on an unemployment line. It's that we have very talented Americans who can't find jobs. And if we give them the right training, they will find the jobs and their talent will be unleashed. Now, back to the phones. John, you're going to be up next. Welcome.
Hey, Eric. How you doing?
Good.
I just wanted to make the point, whatever Trump said about, the chip building and chip manufacturing, that, you need to bring all these people in here to the United States to do it. It's just not right. He's totally wrong. And that's what bothers me the most about Trump, is he just runs his mouth too much. It's his biggest enemy. The fact of the matter is, chip manufacturing, they're foundries. That's what they're called, where they're made. There are some here still remaining here in the United States. And the reason that all of that manufacturing, for the majority of it, is done overseas is primarily because the processes used to build chips, where they build silicon boules and they slice them up and do all the photolithography to them. There's a lot of etching, a lot of organic chemicals, solvents, things like that are used in the process. If you do this type of work here in the U.S., you're going to have to pay companies like Safe Harbors and others to go in and get that waste and treat it to get rid of it. Over in Asia, they just dump it. They don't have near the cost to work with all of the extra chemicals that are used. You got heavy metals, like I said, you got organic solvents, and these are things that if they bring it here to the States, they can make them just the same with the local talent pool that's here in the U.S. It's just it costs more because you have to deal with all of the waste that comes from that.
Now, John, what I hear you saying is that in China they're able to pollute their rivers, and we're not allowed to pollute our rivers here, and that's one of the costs.
You better believe it.
Yes,
I was in Taiwan one time. Literally, most of the manufacturing facilities, not just chip manufacturing, but electronics in general. I have a pretty long background in that. There are canals out in the front of the plants where most of these effluents are just dumped there, and they're treated on a very sparse basis, if you don't mind. They just don't have the controls here in the States. There's nothing to worry about environmentally here in the States if you do the right things, and that's to treat the waste. There are plenty of companies that do that for a living. It can be safely done, but it's just an added cost, a significant cost, mind you, that for a plant that size that builds semiconductors, they got to pay for it. They don't have to pay for it over there, and then when they do it here, it just becomes more expensive. It's done to save costs, plain and simple. Not because there's a lack of talent, right, but to save costs. Every major manufacturer, Intel, AMD, and others, they all have a foundry here in the U.S.
Right.
Whether it be Oregon, whether it be Austin, whether it be Phoenix, it doesn't matter. They have their foundries, but for the actual manufacturing, no, you do it overseas because you don't have to deal with all that waste, safety engineers, treatment, shipping the stuff off, all that stuff. That's why they do it.
So, what I'm also hearing here is think of all of these superhero origin stories we have been deprived as a nation by people being unable to fall into the toxic waste and come out with superpowers.
Yes,
I'm sorry. My brain should not go in directions like that, but it really does.
Yes, I know.
But listen, it's a great point. It really is. And the president, I think, does have to balance this because, like, the nuclear power one is probably the best example on planet Earth for bringing trained people in to retrain our engineers on how to do this. But on the chip foundries, you're 1,000% right. In fact, I got a buddy of mine who actually works for one of the companies you named who is texting me, telling me to tell you amen on that because that is the problem. And in fact, he is texting me that we're probably never going to see a mass amount of chips come from these foundries that are being built in Arizona, and that once the president is out of the way, you will find that they get closed down.
Yeah, Trump just needs to shut his mouth. That's his worst enemy. That sets him back. Every foot or two he takes forward, he takes one or two or three back with the way he runs his mouth, and it just is aggravating.
Well, so listen, I appreciate very much, and happy Thanksgiving to you. Your comments here, and again, a buddy of mine who actually works for one of the companies John named makes the same point that it's the regulatory costs in this country that make it more expensive. The labor costs and regulatory costs, we can make those things here. It's just we don't because of the environmental regulations, labor laws, and things like that. But again, I recorded, and I need to get in the hands of some of the people at the White House what I talked about with nuclear power, because that is exactly, I think, the point the president is gravitating towards is nuclear power is the best example in this country. But we do lack knowledge in some areas because we outsource so much overseas, or we abandon things we're trying to pick back up. And to John's point again, this friend of mine who's texting says, don't forget pharmaceuticals. That is another reason so many pharmaceuticals are made abroad, so we don't have to deal with the environmental cleanup and regulatory costs of that here. There are reasons. It's more expensive to produce things in this country. We have a higher standard of living and expect more from companies when it comes to environmental compliance, and that drives up costs that you don't have to worry about in the slave pits of China. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here, Open Line Friday, 877-973-7425. I was going to do a big monologue on this. I decided I'd rather take your phone calls because I can keep this very short. Democrats and the press corps are furious with Donald Trump, suggesting these idiot Democratic members of Congress who put out that video encouraging the military and intelligence community to ignore the president's orders, that they should be charged with sedition and executed. The White House has clarified now the president doesn't actually want them executed. You do something outrageous on the left, you get Donald Trump's attention, he does something outrageous, you and the press together fan the flames of outrage, and then you fundraise off of it. The president fell for their trap this time. Donald Trump fell for their trap. No, he should not have suggested that. And here, you know the result. For those of you who think, it's no big deal, you are now paying for these people's security because of what Donald Trump did. On the other hand, I would just like to note that many of the people massively outraged about the president's mean tweet were willing to find any excuse in the book to absolve Jay Jones of saying he wanted to murder a man and his children in Virginia. And he ultimately, Democrats in Virginia, got that man across the finish line, Jay Jones. He's now the Attorney General-elect in Virginia, and he wanted to murder a man and his children. And they were all making excuses for him, refusing to denounce him, and yet they expect all of us to denounce Donald Trump now. I'm willing to say Donald Trump bad, but I was also willing to say Jay Jones bad. And I would just note that none of those Democrats, not a single one, would condemn Jay Jones. In fact, you had people like Tim Kaine and Mark Warner and others from Virginia make excuses for Jay Jones, and they're now condemning the president of the United States. No, the president shouldn't have done it. I resent that my taxpayer dollars now have to pay for security for these people because the president stirred up the crazies against them. But you Democrats can really sit this one out because you all gave a pass to Jay Jones in Virginia, who wanted to murder a person, murder a man, and kill his children for the outrage of that man saying something nice about a fellow Democrat. So just please, let's stop the outrage games. You're doing it as a fundraiser. You knew you would trigger him and you could fundraise off of it. That's what's actually going on here. And you know and I know if any member of the military does what you say they should do, you will not lift a finger to help that person. But you probably inspired progressive crazies in the military to do it so they can then run for Congress. Hillsdale College would love to have you take one of their classes. They're a great group, and they will educate you, not indoctrinate you, on the founding of the country, on capitalism, on mathematics, on C.S. Lewis, on Shakespeare, on the history of the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire. They've got massive numbers of classes to choose from, 40 of them. You do at your own pace. Each class consists of a professor guiding you through the topic in 30-minute increments. Depends on the topic, depends on how many increments. You go to ericforhillsdale.com. ERICK, ericforhillsdale.com. You sign up with Hillsdale College, get engaged in the process with Hillsdale. They'll make you smarter. They won't indoctrinate you. They'll educate you. ericforhillsdale.com. There's no charge for this. You get a certificate of completion, and you build a relationship with Hillsdale, one of the great academic institutions of the United States. ericforhillsdale.com.